Hallstatt, a wonderful lake town located just 73 kilometers from Salzburg in the Salzkammergut district, Austria. Surrounded by the Dachstein Mountains, this ancient land of the Austrian Alps, which looks like something out of a Brothers Grimm tale, is the jewel of the region, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1997. In fact, it has become such a popular and loved place that the Chinese made a copy of Hallstatt in their own country. I think this may be the only village in the world that has been cloned. I read that they made an exact replica of Hallstatt with an incredibly large investment near the city of Huizhou in Guangdong Province, China. I haven't seen the one in China, but my advice to you is, don't go for a copy while the original is still standing. Once there, everything was like being in a fairy tale village. A cluster of houses huddled next to each other on the edge of the mountains gives me magic and fantasy. And it's easy to understand why it was the source of inspiration for the fictional kingdom of Arendelle from the Frozen saga. This blockbuster Disney film put this town on the radar of world tourism and became a must-see destination, which receives about 10,000 tourists per day with the desire to experience this film adventure up close. In summer especially, the town of no more than 778 inhabitants has been affected by the large number of tourists who flock to the place to take selfies and walk through its picturesque streets to the impressive mountainous landscape. That is why the mayor of the place is thinking of strategies to reduce the number of visits and publicly asked that they let them live in peace. His plan is to reduce to 100 the number of annual tourist buses that arrive in the city, a figure that today is 10,000. The archaeological museum called Kulturb Hallstatt, with remains from the so-called Hallstatt era, 1300 to 1400 BC, where people learned about geology, religion, and the crafts of this beautiful place. The town square deserves a separate chapter. Called Marktplatz, it has a unique fountain that serves as the main attraction. In one corner of the square is a pretty Lutheran church that was built around 1861 and is a popular attraction with visitors. And of course, a must is to visit the different historical buildings, a wide variety of restaurants that offer typical food of the city, and some shops where you can buy souvenirs. Hallstatt is squeezed between the mountain and the lake. Therefore, the center of Hallstatt is actually just one street along the shore of the lake. That street and the views from it is the reason why so many visit Hallstatt. Many travelers' favorite things to do in Hallstatt include taking pictures for their social media profiles. There are several spots along the main street in Hallstatt that offer different views of the lake, the unique architecture of Hallstatt, and the mountains in the background. Especially the inns on either side of the village offer great views and options for your perfect Instagram snapshot. Finding your way around town couldn't be easier. You follow the crowds, and there is just one way to go, but make sure to walk all the way to the inn past the cemetery and almost out of the village. There is nothing exciting to do in the heart of Hallstatt at the market square, but the market square is located right in the historic center of Hallstatt. Traditional buildings surround the Trinity Fountain and the square that served as the marketplace in the early times of Hallstatt. The square is surrounded by souvenir shops and expensive food and drinks, but you might want to take time to enjoy a cup of coffee, sit on a bench to people watch, or enjoy the Holy Trinity Fountain in the middle of the square. The Bone House, directly adjacent to the church graveyard, is one of the town's most unusual and popular sites. The ossuary, located in St. Michael's Chapel, holds a collection of more than 600 artistically painted skulls of former Hallstatt residents. Limited burial space in the area of the village resulted in the need to reuse existing grave sites for new burials. When an existing grave was excavated, the skull or bones of the original occupant were transferred to the ossuary at St. Michael's. The identity of the deceased individual was preserved in decorative paintings and inscriptions upon the skull, with various artistic styles represented over time. Skulls with wreath ornamentation, for example, are the oldest in the ossuary. The darker the wreath, the older the skull. Flower ornamentation and a black cross on the forehead mark the next phase of artistic development, followed by green leaves on the temple. Beginning in the 19th century, thin ivy branches and Latin inscriptions began to replace prior ornamentation. Very few skulls appeared in the Bone House in the last years of the 20th century, although Hallstatt residents may still request their remains be interred here. Hallstatt is very proud of its 7,000-year history. This is due, in large part, to the prolific salt mines in the nearby mountains which gave rise to the town's name, which means place of salt. In fact, an entire epoch, the Hallstatt era, from 800 to 400 BC, is named for this area. The Hallstatt salt mine is still a working mine. Its salty brine flows through a pipeline to the modern salt works at Ebensee, 25 miles away. Artifacts have been found in this region from throughout ancient times, the Stone Age, Bronze Age, the Hallstatt era, and Roman times. Around 1600 BC, Bronze Age Celtic people were attracted to the area by a brine, salty, spring which had sprung up. Salt, the precious white gold, was used for preserving meat. People later dug tunnels to mine the rock, which was 70% salt. In prehistoric times, the people lived in the mountains by the salt mines. Over 1,500 Celtic graves have been excavated there. The Romans, who were victorious over the Celts in 13 AD, were the first settlers to live down along the lake. The Hallstatt Skywalk opened in 2013, quickly becoming the visitor favorite. The new viewing platform extends 12 meters from the mountainside, just under the Rudolfsturm, a medieval defense tower dating back to the 13th century. Rudolfsturm nowadays serves as a restaurant. The skywalk floats 360 meters over Hallstatt for a true bird's-eye look at what the Hallstatt marketing folks call World Heritage Views. Religious beliefs shape the town of Hallstatt. It's hard to imagine the townscape without the Church of Christ Tower, but this evangelical church wasn't established until the 18th century, when freedom to exercise religion was granted to Protestant residents. Take in the sight both from afar and up close. At the top of the town sits the Catholic Church of Hallstatt. This ornate Gothic altar was designed by famed Austrian artist Leonhard Astel in the early 1500s. The church's artwork is so valuable that a tourist couple once smuggled a painting home in the late 1980s. After decades of investigation, the artwork was finally retrieved and reinstated in the summer of 2018. Set foot in the village of Hallstatt, and it seems a musical number might erupt at any moment. Bright reds and yellows paint the Austrian town's 16th century architecture. In spring and summer, flower boxes drape windows in geraniums and ivy. And cobblestone streets connect charming cafes, ornate churches, and alpine inns. Natural wonders await around every corner, from the neighboring Salzkammergut Mountains to Lake Hallstatt to the village's very own waterfall. Despite being accessible only on foot, the tiny town saw 1 million visitors in 2018, a staggering 347 times more tourists per capita than Hong Kong, one of the world's most visited cities. Visit in October to avoid the summer crowds while still making the most of temperate weather on this perfect weekend itinerary.